Yo guys, and welcome back to another video, and welcome back to another Doctor Who review. Well, the Doctor Who episode review, and today we're going to be reviewing Doctor Who Season 1, Episode 4, 73 Yards. And it's an episode with a lot of mixed opinions. I have just rewatched it right now. I've had a pretty busy bank holiday weekend with a film premiere of my own, which, by the way, if you haven't already, go ahead and check out The Plague Loop 4, my brand new film, which is just released on YouTube. We had a full in-person premiere literally on just Saturday that's just gone, which means that I had to obviously sort a lot of things out for that and the aftermath of all that. And also that means that it is Monday night and I am recording this review, which is supposed to go up on Tuesday. So, very fun. Tuesday it should come up at 7 PM, by the way, so yeah, we should be good. Anyway, let's get on to this episode. I'm going to go ahead and try and navigate my way through this maze of a plot and then break down all of the other factors, from the acting to the locations to any sets involved. And yeah, I think that's pretty fair to say. Anyway, before we get into this review, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, turn on the post notifications. We're trying to get to 100,000 subscribers on this YouTube channel. It's been a lifelong dream of mine to get to 100,000 subscribers. And if you guys like Doctor Who or any stuff, because I do have a lot more content coming for Doctor Who, not only these reviews, but I also have, first thoughts videos. So just after the episode comes out, I watch it, film a raw reaction and give my first thoughts on the actual episodes. But I also have a very expensive purchase on order right now, and let's just say that this very expensive purchase may be a prop replica of the 14th Doctor's sonic screwdriver, and I don't know fully when it's expected to come, when it's expected to arrive at the house, and for me to actually be able to do an unboxing and review. But as soon as it does actually come here, I will do a full-on in detailed review, probably the most detailed review on YouTube of that prop replica, because I can pretty much imagine that there's not going to be that many reviews about this prop replica, because, well, number one, it's very, very expensive, and number two, I don't know how many people are going to have this by that time. But yeah, all of that aside, let's get into this episode, which is the reason why you're actually watching this review. So, we start off with no title sequence. And this was a very odd choice to me, as the only other time in Doctor Who where this has really happened in recent history, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say Sleep No More in the Capaldi era. And for Sleep No More, it works very, very well because it's a first-person horror style. It's made to make you very, very uncomfortable. And there are elements like that in this particular episode, but I would not say that it's to that extent. And I'll go through why right now, actually. Because, well, you do get horror and suspense throughout the first half of this, but the second half kind of does a big change, and there's no majorly horror-based stuff in this episode, even though there is like a bit of suspense thrown in throughout. But we're going to go through this whole thing from the beginning. So, the Doctor and Ruby land on the cliffs in Wales, which is actually a really, really cool choice. I've got to give it props for picking Wales, the home country in which I live in, to shoot this entire episode. I think it's very, very cool. Now, I do know that they had to use this episode as a bit of a Doctor Light episode, And I do actually like that idea. I like that Ruby is the main focus of this, and I think that actually works very, very well. And there was a lot of in real life explanations for that, because they needed to start shooting, but Ncuti Gatwa, who basically plays the Doctor, was shooting Sex Education and not Doctor Who at this point in time. So, yeah, they had to do a little bit of moving around and rescheduling and stuff, but they managed to pull it off very, very well, because I think this episode came out pretty good after my second watch. I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't a massive fan upon the first watch, and I still wouldn't say it's my favourite episode of the series, nor would I rank it very highly in episodes of the series, but I would definitely say it was a solid episode, and I don't not like it. I think I could rewatch it, and I definitely do want to rewatch it along with this entire series. So it's not like your Love and Monsters or Idiot's Lantern. It's not that bad, because trust me, them episodes were, in my books, very terrible. Along with Fear Her, that was a bit of a stinker, wasn't it? Anyway, moving on. 73 Yards. It's better than a lot of them episodes and a lot of the filler episodes that have been throughout Doctor Who, and I would rate it higher in that sort of sense, but as an overall series for, well, season 1, I'm probably not going to rank it as the highest episode, and I'll get to why in a little bit, and sort of throw in my thoughts and opinions on all of this kind of stuff, because that's what I do in a review. So basically, the Doctor steps on this very spiritual looking thing. It's basically a load of string with some like little things on it, and yeah, he breaks it, and that causes Mad Jack to be released. But that is a little bit later into the episode. Ruby has not noticed this yet, but she does notice a figure which is mysteriously standing 73 yards away. I see what they did there with the title. But in a little bit, she's like trying to figure out where she is, and she's figuring out this whole woman standing away from her. You know, the closer she gets, the further she gets away, so she's always the same distance away. I really like this concept. I think it is a very unsettling, sort of creepy style concept, and I think this would have been perfect just for an episode on its own, doing a more horror based episode with the Doctor not there and Ruby is just there, and they just sort of explore this horror narrative. It does change up a little bit halfway through, and I do kind of... there's two explanations for this. There's one where I just... it doesn't need to be there, and then two where it does work, but I'll explain a little bit more nearer to the end of the video. Regardless of all that, we get a little bit further in, and this is where Ruby meets the hiker. A completely random hiker who walks past, who's played by the reoccurring actress Susan Twist, who has been in many of the episodes. She's in Wild Blue Yonder. She appeared... oh. yeah, so she first appeared in Wild Blue Yonder. She then appeared again in... I believe The Church on Ruby Road. Then in Space Babies. And then again in The Devil's Cord. She was the tea lady. And then again in Boom. And now in 73 Yards. I have a feeling that this character is going to become something a bit bigger and overarching in this whole season. Maybe even multi-seasons wise. Very interesting. But yeah. She obviously meets them, and then this is when she figures out that anybody who goes up to try and talk to this mystery woman gets terrified and instantly runs away. But this is a little inconsistent with something that happens later on, which kind of ties back into something that I figured out on the second watch. So, this is a very complicated video because, well, this episode is quite complicated. So this video may be on the longer side. Yeah, I definitely think it may be actually on the longer side because of how complex this episode is, which is kind of a little bit of a downfall, personally. It's not that I didn't get it, because I did after the second watch, and I did talk to a few people about this and watch a couple of YouTube videos on it, and it does kind of make sense now, but there are a couple of little things that went unanswered, and by a couple of little things I mean quite a lot of things that kind of went unanswered, but we may touch on them as we go through. So, basically Ruby goes down to this pub full of Welsh people, and for some reason they sort of lean into this whole Mad Jack theory, and it turns out they're all joking for some reason. I really don't get why they added this in. Like, other than it's a little bit comedic, but it kind of works, it's kind of funny, but we don't really get to see them characters ever again. As time sort of moves through, Ruby sort of stays in this pub and eventually gets kicked out. And then she moves back to her family home. Now, one thing I did notice about when she got kicked out, the woman in the pub mentioned that one of the other people he ran away and basically essentially hates Ruby at this point. So I reckon this is a case of him going up to the sort of woman 73 yards away and trying to talk to her, but then obviously running away, and it sort of creating this idea where he doesn't like Ruby anymore, which is very interesting, and it kind of gets broken a little bit further on. Bearing this in mind, we have a little travel montage of when Ruby goes back to her home, and she talks to her mum about it, who then devises a little bit of a plan with Ruby to go ahead and see if they can talk to the 73 yards mystery woman. So they go ahead and do that, and then Ruby's mum runs away. And there's this whole really cool bit. I think it was very, very well shot, this part, and I do really, really like how well shot this episode was overall, with fun little transitional shots and things like that too. I think it visually it looks really, really cool. As well, audio wise, it looks it sounds very, very cool as well. But back to this. So Ruby's mum has run away, and the last hope that Ruby has is Unit. And one person that I wasn't expecting to find in this video was Kate Stewart and Unit coming back, which is very, very cool at the same time as not that cool, because she really didn't have much of a part in this. She had a tiny little scene with Ruby in which she obviously engages the 73 yards woman, and then they all run away. Again, very, very odd that they all run away, and we never actually find out what the 73 yards woman's saying or what causes these people to run away. In some cases they just run away. In some cases they have resentment and hatred towards Ruby. So, very, very interesting, I suppose. It's interesting, but also a little confusing, because it's just like I can't fully wrap my head around the conclusion, because we don't really get one for this episode. But I digress. We're going to get to the conclusion in the end, and I'm going to say good points and bad points about this conclusion, and we're just going to kind of firm it, I suppose. But moving on, it shows that Ruby is living out her life now, and that is when she finds out about Mad Jack, who is running for Prime Minister of the UK. And this is where things get a little bit hairy for me, personally. Now, there are like a couple of things that were thrown into this episode, and I did originally, when on my first watch, I thought that this was a little bit too on the nose and like a little bit too on the nose politically. And on my second watch, I did actually look into it a little bit more, and it's kind of an interesting subject, I'd suppose. So there is this party which is kind of explored in this episode a tiny bit with Mad Jack's character, who is essentially representing this party. But this party, I think, may crop up again in the future. I think there is a possibility that this party may crop up again, maybe later on down the line, as in a similar sense to how the whole Vote Saxon thing, you know, and the Bad Wolf thing really kept cropping up in Doctor Who, which, fair enough, it's very, very interesting, and I think it would make something that's pretty cool. But I do definitely think that it was very, very heavily tied into modern day, and although I think it is pretty cool that they do sort of explore modern day things, I find myself thinking, like, I watch Doctor Who to sort of be able to escape slightly from the modern day dramas and things that you just hear about modern day. And when it does bring things like that into it, it does sort of make you a little bit questionable. But then on the second watch, I did see it as more of a thing. I just, like, overall, I think it wasn't like a bad choice that they put it in, but it was a little bit just like, it just felt a little bit unnecessary in some ways, and I will expand upon that in a second. But, well, I will actually right now. Obviously, like, the Mad Jack character wanted to, his whole aim was to launch nukes, and this was never really explained why. He just wanted to launch nukes for some reason, and I don't know, I just felt like it was a little bit underwritten for the story, if that makes sense. Like, he's like, oh, I wanna like regain control and essentially launch nukes, but he doesn't really explain, like, who he's launching the nukes at, for what, you know, what motive he has for doing that. So it just feels a little bit cheap for the storyline, if that makes sense. Nevertheless, I do think that Mad Jack was a fun character, which was wonderfully acted, and I think it was kind of interesting as well. But I think, like, on a political episode scale, I think, you know, 2 episodes that did this a lot better was Boomtown, not to be mixed up with Boom, the last episode. Boomtown and World War 3 were 2 very, very good episodes featuring the Slitheen, and I think that them 2 episodes did a much better job at portraying politics in Doctor Who, which I think, yeah, was pretty cool. I just liked how much more subtly ingrained into the story it was in them 2 episodes compared to this particular episode, where it was more just like on the nose, if that makes sense. But moving past that kind of thing, eventually Ruby lines up 73 Yards Woman with Mad Jack, and he runs away and obviously resigns from his Prime Minister role. And I think this was a good way to end it, and a pretty clever way actually to end it, with using the 73 Yards Woman as, you know, a good way to end it. My little bit of a problem is we got this far in the story, and then it just, like, tends to be like Ruby getting older and older and older until she eventually gets very old, revisits the TARDIS for one last time, and then dies in a deathbed kind of thing in a hospital. Like, it was very vague of what actually happened to Ruby at that point, but she does see the 73 yards woman who is not 73 yards away anymore. So that kind of defeats the whole purpose of her not coming closer. And then it's kind of a little bit hinted at that Ruby becomes the 73 yards woman and then warns her younger self, well, is essentially there to stop the Doctor from stepping and breaking on the thing. So basically that this entire timeline would never happen because Mad Jack wouldn't have been released. I mean, if you're not keeping up with me, I'm not surprised. This is a very confusing episode, and after the first watch, I literally ended the episode and I was like, what the hell just happened? I was just very confused, and it took me a little bit of talking to a bunch of different YouTubers and watching a couple of different videos to properly understand what happened in this episode, and the fact that Ruby decided to basically make the Doctor not step on it so that this entire episode never actually happened. But there are obviously a few inconsistencies throughout the episode, which I have mentioned, and it's a very, very funny episode. I don't think it was necessarily badly made, but in terms of writing, I do think it ended a little bit abruptly. Like, they left it until very, very last minute to wrap up the plot and the story. So I did think it was sort of good pacing all the way through and then wrapped up too quickly at the end. Like, I felt this could possibly have been a two-parter with the amount of material he had to work with. And equally, I think that the whole 73 Yards Woman could have been a whole story on its own. And then the the Prime Minister style story could have been a whole separate part on its own. But I do think that it's just a little bit rushed at the end, personally. So yeah, where would I rank this episode? But before I actually go over my final rankings, I will fully just gloss over all of the acting and stuff. I think the acting was really, really good from Millie Gibson, as well as any of the other characters involved. I think there wasn't any bad acting in this particular episode. And I think that also the, cinematography and the locations were really, really nice. I do like the idea that they shot the pub scenes within an actual pub, and they didn't just do like a whole set for the inside and then exterior shots. I think that it was very, very cool that they actually just went to a pub and shot there. Like, it does show that Doctor Who is definitely getting better budgets for better locations, especially that clifftop location. They really, really mastered that one. And again, yeah, I think that was all done very, very well, and I did enjoy this episode, I'm not gonna lie. It's not that I didn't enjoy the episode, it was just a little bit fastly wrapped up, and probably could have been a two-parter, personally, in my view. But yeah, I think this episode was a definite strange one. It's one of the Doctor Who episodes that, every so often Doctor Who throws an episode out there that you're like, okay, it's a little bit different to all the other episodes, it doesn't quite fit in, but you kind of like it for a reason. Even though it struggles to make sense in some areas. But yeah, I must say that I did enjoy this episode for the couple of things that I would say I would be critical about. I did enjoy this episode overall, and if I was going to rank it above all the other episodes, or within the other episodes, I would still say Boom is number one. This 73 yards, I mean, Russell T Davies did say that it was, his best episode yet, and I definitely don't agree with the idea of this being the best episode that Russell has ever done, but it's not the worst one that he's ever done. I mean, it definitely tops a lot of them filler episodes and just badish episodes as well. So, yeah. But in terms of this season, I would have to say that it's just a little bit under Space Babies. I just prefer the concept of Space Babies a little bit more than this, personally, but I think it's a case of, and I think I'm not alone here. I do think there is a lot of people that did leave this episode a little bit confused and would rank this episode probably a little bit lower on the scale. So my personal ranking so far would be Boom is number 1 by quite a long shot, actually. Then you've got The Devil's Cord as number 2. I did really enjoy that episode, and if you want to know why, my review is out right now. Then Space Babies, and then a little bit underneath Space Babies, I'd say 73 yards. So, that is basically the end of my full review, which I'm doing on a Monday and have Doctor Who socks on for, which is pretty cool, I'm not going to lie. But yeah, that is basically the end of my whole review, so I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please comment, like and subscribe as usual, and I will see you guys in the next video, which should be very soon. Actually, I've got a video coming out Wednesday, and then Friday, and then another one on Saturday, and then 2 on Saturday actually, because I've got the Dot and Bubble First Thoughts video coming out on Saturday, so stay tuned and subscribe for that. But yeah, thanks for watching, comment, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.